welcome back to the next chapter of the rebuild. Since the last video, I got dropped off the plates that I designed for the blower. So from the original MDF template that I drew up to make sure I've got as minimal clearance as possible while still fitting, obviously. I gave them to Nathan, local guy, and he's scanned them, turned them into a CAD file, pre-cut a 3mm one just to make sure that it fits and everything lines up. I missed it by about that much, so we ground that out a little bit and the fitment's absolutely perfect. The bolts line up bang on, so very happy with that. Since that one fitted, he went ahead and cut the 12mm one for me, so just got to clean up that a little bit, but that's been bolted up and that fits, so pretty happy with that. Everything's going well so far. Made up the spacer, which basically sits between the two plates, so that it obviously adds the strength to it. The front plate, which I've still got to recess or countersink all the holes for the bolts. They're the bolts that go through the front of that. So bolts those two together. So we'll give those a bit of a clean up and some paint. The other ones that got cut were the shims that go basically between the plate and the water pump. So I just need to get some pretty bolts for those now that are all high strength. So the ones for the blower plate are done, but the ones for that bolt it to the actual motor, I'd like to get better ones there. Hex head don't really do much for me, but getting long bolts like that in high tensile with a prettier head will be a bit challenging. So yeah, that's all cut and ready to fit up. So now I can bolt everything back up, put the motor back in, finish all the intercooler pipes, run all the lines, and then pull everything back out and finish the engine bay. Back into it today. As you can see, got the engine back in again. Just taken all the booster and the slave cylinder, master cylinder, whatever it is for the clutch, pedal box, all that's now out. So now the plan will be to try and make all the firewall smooth. Not really sure what we're going to do yet. We'll get the engine out, check out clearances and stuff, and then start making up some pieces. I don't want to make just one flat piece, so we'll give it a little bit of character. It'll obviously tie into all the rest of it, so we'll keep chipping along with that one. The other thing I've done is drilled the hole for the engine harness to come through so that I can try and make that neat. It's quite a big gap there, so no matter what I do, it's going to be seen, which is sort of annoying, but I'll try and make the firewall so that that's kind of hidden. As you can see by the mess here, the interior is all out again. So it's been today's job is get all that out, mainly to get the HVAC unit out. So that's no longer going back in there. There'll be no heater, aircon, whatever you want to call it, controls. So Troy's given me permission to remove that, which means we can do the flat firewall without interrupting having that mounted in the way. So I've been cleaning up the wiring, tucked away all the stuff that is for the heater controls. So trying to minimize what's going to be hanging there. So it'll just be one harness that'll hang down for the stereo, and then one for the power windows and one for handbrake and cigarette lighter, stuff like that. So all the interior is back out again. The dashboard will go back in, give me plenty of clearance underneath. So you can see the hole in the middle there for the engine harness, which will run through. So I've basically measured up the length of that so that can be all mounted, and then that can be run through, and then once all the interior is back over the top of that, it'll all be nice and neat. So next job, hopefully turns up soon, will be the pedal box. So got the old one out. I'll use that as reference for location of where the pedals are and mount that one in there. It's a reverse mount pedal box, twin pedal, so need to get that sorted out and mounted before I can really do much on the firewall anyway. So hopefully that turns up soon and I can keep chipping away with that. For now, I'll just finish off some wiring and get the engine harness in and finished off. So I've had a busy couple of weeks fabricating. Made up the permanent bracket for the power steering pump, so that gives me clearance for the hoses to run around through there. I'm also going to use this to double to mount the pod filter too. Once I get the intake pipe sorted, that's pretty much the last piece I've got to try and make fit. So the charge pipe's now welded, so that's pretty much in place. I just got to put the coupling and the clamps and everything on, but it's obviously all got to be painted, so I'm not going to fit everything up yet. Been toying with the idea of a new fan shroud, so I went and got a sheet of alloy and started making that up. Obviously still got to cut the hole for the fan, and then build the standoff for the motor and the fan itself to mount to. So we're still playing with ideas for that, but what that does is give me a lot clearance for the MAF, which ideally we'll get rid of it eventually, but for now it's going to have to be in there. So getting rid of that plastic shroud gives me clearance for that. So basically, if it stays there, it won't really be seen from a show point of view. I'd love to get rid of it, but the cost involved just for the sake of having that hidden is not really worth it. But if we get the tune for the cam and that, we'll probably try and tune it MAFless at the same time. So I've made up a second set of pipes for the bottom. So the only join will be in the middle there. So it'll have the dual clamps. So all this will all be welded straight to the throttle body and painted. So I don't want to have ugly clamps sitting up here. So that's the reason for that. So all that's basically ready for welding. Got the other extractor in, which thankfully fits. Has to go in from the bottom. Very little clearance, but basically drop the steering rack, take the plugs out and slide it up from underneath. It does fit perfectly. It's just a real tight fit to get in. So that's in. What that does is tuck the collectors right up against the floor. So the original ones sat at least 2 inches lower than that. And when it was aired out, that was the biggest issue, was it just dropped straight on top of those. So now that we've got those two extractors in, I can get some oval flanges to convert those. So we'll weld them on and then they're ready to go to do an exhaust when we get it onto a hoist eventually. Have made up the trans cross member. Jason Way sent me a kit, universal kit, so I've chopped that up and made that fit. There's nothing available for a Series 3 Ute with the Gatrag 5 litre, so basically started from scratch and made my own one. So that also raises at about 2 inches. So trying to get as much ground clearance as possible. Obviously when it's aired out, there's not much clearance. So that's been one thing I've had to try and tick off. So now that's done. The gearbox is obviously suspended. We can do the exhaust. The other thing I've got is the new plug leads and the MSD holders. So they'll mount straight to the rocker covers and clip on just to tidy that right up so they're not sticking out. They'll run around the back of the engine behind the fuel lines and be, well, as hidden as possible. Obviously it's very difficult to try and hide plug leads, but they'll disappear around the back and tuck in behind the fuel fitting, so they'll be clean enough. We've just got to get a tap and put that in. That's where we're up to. I'm not sure what else I've really done other than the fan shroud and a bit of welding, tacking. Been drawn back and forward to Nathan to try and get some stuff tacked up so we can keep going with it. So now everything's final fitted and clearances are all checked, then it can be fully welded. So the blower's going to go back off to Kappa to get serviced. That'll go at Bathurst in a couple of weeks. So once that goes off, it'll come back and we'll give that a coat of paint and everything will be, well, the engine will be out by then. So we'll get the engine bay done and then I know everything fits when it goes back in. The only other addition is making clearance for the blower valves. So they're both now in there. Power steering lines are run. Just got to make some clamps up for those. I think that's about it for now. So slowly chipping away to make sure everything fits in there good. And then I can strip it all and get stuck hard into the engine bay and try and get that smoothed out once the pedal box is done. Still waiting for that. So once that's done, then I can work out what I'm going to do with the rest of it. Righto, big update day. So it's been a little while since I've actually filmed anything, but I've been extremely busy doing lots of little jobs that really sort of impossible to kind of film. Mainly the pedal box in and out, make sure all that fits. One of the things that I really wanted to do was change these engine covers. So where the notch is, we don't need that, and as you can see the sensor through there that I've relocated. The passenger side, then the driver's side has the notch for the cable, which we're also not using, and then the one at the back, I don't know what that one's even for, but I don't want them there, but I want to retain the chrome covers. So instead of destroying these ones, got hold of another set. Now that's been welded up, still got a little bit of work to clean it up, and that one's been welded up. It's got to file finish that, shape that out, and that side's been filled out. So the plan is to basically get them file finished. The other ones are a little bit wobbly, so these will be straight as, and then they'll go off and get chromed. There's a couple of very small pinholes in it, which we got told would happen when we tried to weld it. So I'm really hoping that the chromers are going to be able to fill those with copper or something, and chrome these so that they look just as good as the originals, but I don't have to wreck the originals, so we'll keep those intact. That's a trip to Sydney this weekend to see Chubby and try and get these chromed. There's no rush on those, so if they can do it, then they can go on. I'll put them away or whatever, and that'll retain the original look, which I sort of really want to stay with. I don't want to change the engine covers. I don't really want to paint them. I'd really like to leave those chrome. Not that there's anything else chrome, but it kind of works with the whole build of the engine bay, so we're going to try and keep it. The next big step on progress has been the extractors. So I've got some flanges cut out locally with some stainless gaskets, and got some adapters so that they go from the 3-inch round to 3-inch oval. So the extractors used to stop about there with a 2.5-inch collector. So I've chopped that off right back to where it meets the 3-inch oval, the 3-inch round, and got those mounted underneath so they're all fit level, parallel, whatever you want to call it, and tacked them in place. And Nathan from Kelfab has welded those for me, so they're welded internally on the flange. My plan is to sandblast back to the weld and then Cerakote just that section. So from the top they'll still have the HPC finish on them. I don't really want to do the whole things. We kind of paid for HPC coated extractors for a reason, so that they look the part. Unfortunately, being a demonstration set, I'm assuming they had no flanges on them, so regardless we were going to have to weld to them. So trying to minimise how much I actually have to Cerakote. So that'll continue basically where you can't really see it. It'll continue from there through. Not really sure on the colour of the Cerakote yet, but the entire system will be Cerakoted underneath. So no polishing, but it'll hopefully keep the heat in, which won't burn the paint underneath once everything's airbrushed. I really need to be able to tuck this up as far as possible so that when it's aired out, it doesn't sit on the grass and catch fire, or doesn't burn any of the ground if it happens to get aired out and it's still hot. So we've got some oval pipe ready to go. I've just got to order some bends and then try and make it fit underneath and tucked up. We're just going to dump it at the diff at this stage, so I'll work out what I need and order some parts. The other thing I need to get is an O2 sensor. The old one's pretty shabby. So that's the exhaust for the moment. I really need just to get the extractors done while the engine was still in there. Now they're done, we can Cerakote that out, and I know that the extractors are going to fit when we put them back in. And worst case, engine bay can be painted, engine back in, extractors on, and we can make the exhaust on a hoist once everything else is finished. It'll be the last thing. But at this stage, I think I'll probably try and order some bits and at least try and tack up an exhaust, and then we can have it ready to go, so everything's ready to fit. So since everything underneath was in such poor condition, it was only cheap chrome that was ever used. So everything's got a lot of surface rust, or aluminium's just corroded away. So it's really not in good condition. So for us to be building a show car and have all that underneath, it's just not going to happen. So all this stuff will go to low fabrication on Monday. They're going to powder coat it all in shadow chrome. So we'll probably put some new black bushes and everything in it. I don't know if they're being 25 years old what their condition's going to be. So it's going to be quite the task for them to sort that mess out, but that's what they do. So hopefully everything will come back looking brand new, and then I can pack it all up and put it away until such time I get the rest of it done and ready to roll. So just going to put it away in containers, and it'll make it quicker to assemble once the engine bay is done and the car's all back together. So all that lot will go down. Might have a few more bits to take, but for now that's what will go and get powder coated. So the throttle body pipe that's been extended right down to the charge pipe for the intercooler is now well, fully welded up, so I can start smoothing it out, bogging it, painting it. You can see with the new engine cover there at the front, you can no longer see that sensor. Still a little bit of notching out to do to make it fit nice and neat, but just cleans that right up, so nothing hanging out the sides of it. Trying to cover as much as possible, retain that factory look, well, that 25-year-old look anyway. So that pipe's done, so shall keep ticking away on that one and make that nice and clean. And then just got the rubber flange to go in there with a couple of clamps, and that's pretty much all you'll see. Got the MSD clamps in place for the leads, so they're bolted to the rocker cover itself. So tucks the leads right in so they're not sticking out, run around the back of the rocker cover there, and straight onto the dizzy. So just got to make up the ends. Once the engine covers are on and everything's in place, then just tucks them right in. So trying to make that clean. They're just a nice little addition that makes things much neater. Probably one of the biggest things in progression as far as the workshop goes is a rotisserie. So at Bathurst last month, Hare and Forbes had a stand there, had these rotisseries on display with a Tirana on it. Looking at the height and length and everything, asked whether it would fit a ute, and they seem pretty confident that it'll fit almost anything. So since Troy was there, I said best option is to get a rotisseries probably now. They were on special, so they're certainly not the cheapest item, but it gives you the flexibility of using the full hoop. So we can turn the ute completely upside down if we need to. I'm really not sure if I've got the clearance inside my shed for it, but we'll worry about that when the time comes, whether I need to or not. Mainly it's just putting it on its side at 45 degrees so we can do the floor for the airbrushing. I can do any repairs under there. We can use these as dollies, so I can actually put this on our tilt tray with both of these bolted to the car, tied together, and we can drag it straight onto the tilt tray and take it to work to do all the painting at work. So that's probably one of the biggest key aspects of this, is I can now relocate the ute reasonably easy without any driveline in it. To get the back in place, I've used the existing control arm locations. So I've made up some brackets to hold that, but to get that arm high enough to go onto the rotisserie, I have to lift the whole ute another 200 mil still. So I'm going to get some blocks of wood, put them under the engine stand, sorry, the stands, and try and get it up so I can bolt that together. At the moment it's not a priority. I need to get all the engine side of things sort of done, drop the motor and K-frame back out, and then get the front and the back up high enough, build mounts for the front. So I'm going to pick up the existing K-frame mount on the rail and put the other bar underneath that. So it'll basically, where the mounting points are, to be pretty level. I'm not really sure where it's got to be as far as the relation to where the center of the rotisserie goes to get it to actually balance. Otherwise it's either going to be bottom heavy or top heavy. Bottom heavy won't be an issue, but top heavy could be a concern if it flips upside down. So once the motor's out, I'll work on that. For now, I've just got a few things left to do on the engine, maybe do the exhaust or whatever. The supercharger is in South Australia at Kappa. That's been serviced, all new bearings and seals, been given a clean bill of health. So that's on its way back. So I can finish off pipe work completely for that. I've just got to modify the inner guard to run the intake pipe. So I might as well wait to finish that off before I pull the engine out. And then I can get stuck in the rotisserie and do underneath. Once the engine's on the stand, then I can make everything nice and pretty on that. All the wiring harness is sort of done. Just got to finish off the fan shroud, which I know I've got all clearance for that, so that's no problem. So yeah, that's probably the biggest update with the rotisserie, is we now have one. So we'll get that up and set up one day. And that'll be pretty cool to have it on its side and actually see all the airbrushing without having to lay on your back. By far one of the most time-consuming jobs, as far as hours and engineering and thought involved, has been getting rid of the original pedal box. So we now have a Tilton race box, pedal box, whatever you want to call it, with hydraulic clutch. It's all reverse mount, so nothing goes through the firewall. So my biggest challenge was trying to mount that structurally. You really don't get instructions with it. It's a generic fit, so you just got to make something. So I took an original top bracket off an old car that I had, chopped that up and tacked things in place until I could get the correct placement. The pedals location isn't perfect for what I want, but I can't physically lift it any higher because it's right on the column. So the column was really my limiting factor as to how high I could go. I could go left or right of the column, but the clutch pedal original one was dead in line with the steering column, so I've tried to retain that. Their location's pretty good. I'd like them to be just a little bit lower, but they line up all right with the accelerator pedal. So everything's now mounted in. Nathan's welded up all that bracket. It is solid, like it's not going anywhere. So I'm pretty confident that it clears everything, but it should be fine. Obviously it's not going to be driven on the streets or anything, so it's a show car. It's my opinion, it's safe. So I've just got to run all the lines. Once I had everything done and put back in, I realised that the accelerator pedal, the original mount plate where it bolts to the firewall I was going to use, wasn't even close to fitting. So I've had to modify that quite extensively to change where the arm mounts to it. So the actual pivot point and everything is still in the same spot. It comes through the firewall in the same spot. But yeah, it just clears the back of the pedal box now. So it's still the factory location for the pedal. I can still get my floor in and out with everything in there. All I've got to do is make up now some lines. So the reservoir bottle sits up on top of the tunnel, pokes through the top of the scuttle, so you access it from outside. While I've made up the bracket for that, I've put the coil and the ignition module up there as well. So all the wiring will now come through the tunnel behind the engine. So that gets rid of a couple of more things up there. The HVAC unit's now gone, so giving me plenty clearance to run all that stuff. Would have been nice to probably do that to start with, and then I could have got rid of all the wiring out of this kick panel and everything, but the fuse box will still stay up in there. Once the lines are in there, I'll still have access to that as per factory. Just would have been nice to have a little bit more room, but I've made it all fit. So it's been a lot of hours just to get that in and make sure that the pedals actually have the travel they need. And then I've just got to run the hydraulic line to the gearbox. Thankfully the get drag is a hydraulic clutch, so that worked in our favour. I don't have to run a cable for it, and it meant we can actually change it to a reverse mount pedal box for the clutch. So that's been the biggest hurdle to try and sort that out. It's been very time consuming to in and out. Been very difficult to try and film that. The cover, put the cover on. The lids are through there, so I'll chuck a photo up of that, but you can see where that is to fill those up. So obviously once they're full, you don't really need to get to them. So if we ever have to check them, it won't be hard to pop the cover off and check them. But yeah, once they're full and everything's bled up, I think that should be fine. So the firewall now will be completely flat all the way across. It'll kick back in behind the engine, and then just tidy that up so both sides will be symmetrical. What I'm going to do is to retain the original firewall behind there. So you can see the original accelerator cable mount is in there. What I did was got an accelerator cable off a V6, which is quite substantially longer. So with the bend in like that, it doesn't put any more tension on when you press the pedal. It still feels exactly the same. So the firewall won't sit right against the cable, so it won't press it in. The pedal box unbolts with the cable now attached to it. So from inside, I can poke the cable through, feed it around, go through the existing clutch hole, and then it comes back through the floor where the wiring harness is, runs up, goes underneath the engine cover, and loops around onto the throttle body bracket, which I've also modified. So the cable is now effectively 100% hidden. Other ones I've seen, they still run the factory cable out that hole and across, and it still sits here. And if you're smoothing an engine bay out, everything's gone except that. It just looks terrible. So I spent a lot of time to try and make that work. Instead of buying a $500 pedal and a cable to try and do aftermarket, I just made the factory stuff work. So when you push the pedal, it feels exactly the same as if it was an original setup. So just cleans that right up and hides more stuff. So the only thing I've got left is to try and hide the steering column shaft where it comes through. So that'll just poke out the bottom of the firewall. But basically everything else on the firewall is now completely gone. Well, even the engine bay. So no more brake booster, no more mounts for the reservoir. The clutch reservoir is gone. So deleted everything off the strut towers and the firewall. So it's going to be super clean. It'll just be an engine and a supercharger, and that's it. So looking forward to seeing that finished, but got a long way to go. But yeah, once the engine's out, I can then get stuck into making up the plates for the back firewall. All the front ones are kind of done, so I can dummy fit all those, start tacking those in place, get busy with the oxy and shrinking and get rid of all these lumps and bumps, and then start cleaning it up and get some bog and paint, and looking forward to it. So last thing I've got to show you in this episode is the diff. So now that that's out, once again the chrome and that's gone to shit, so we're going to get rid of that. I'm not going to worry about trying to re-chrome it. We're just going to get it blasted and we're going to paint it. So the paint will be the shadow chrome, basically the same colour as what the powder coat is. I don't really want to try and powder coat a diff. I don't want to strip out the crown and pinion and everything if I can avoid it. We can basically just get it blasted and painted. So the original mounts for the bump stops, they've been cut off. I just got to clean that up, and then I'll take it locally, get it blasted, and we'll take it to work and paint it. Take out all the ends if I have to, clean all that up. But yeah, it's in a bit of a sad way, but I know it's a low K diff, so it should be in good condition. So I won't need any new seals and everything, but yeah, we'll get it cleaned up and get that put away, ready to go back in as well. I think that'll probably do for this episode. Lots of progress, nothing to really be able to film, but that's where we're at the moment. So we'll keep going. We've got a few weeks off over Christmas, so I'm going to try and go hard on this engine bay, get that at least built and tacked in, and then focus on just trying to get that finished so that I can get it up in the air on the rotisserie, and then we can go hard on the floor, take it to work, paint the whole thing, bring it back, start putting it back together. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.